Welcome to Season 5 of the Lead with Coffee podcast, where we continue the journey into how you can change the culture in your business and your home through simple leadership practices. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to join into today's conversation. Welcome back to the Lead with Coffee podcast. We want to continue the conversation that we had last week when we were talking about the Live to Lead conference and Patrick Lencioni's talk about the different types of working genius. We saw him at the EntreLeadership Summit in the spring of this year, but there was so much content at that point that it felt a little overwhelming to step into that at that time. So last week, we were able to go ahead and see him again and really dive in with our team to the 6 Types of Working Genius book that he has. And let me tell you, it was a talk that the entire team said, oh, I definitely want to take that quiz. And if you remember, I've said it multiple times on this podcast, I am not a quiz taker when it comes to work and leadership. I do not like these Enneagram tests and all these different ones that really put you in a box, because I feel like as leaders, we are always evolving, and I don't want to become stagnant in what someone labeled me. I feel like I could be this today, but I'm going to grow into something new tomorrow. But this one I actually liked.
Yeah, it's good because there's no negative connotations. These are what I'm really good at, and these are the things that frustrate me.
Yeah.
And what they're in between, and what I say good at, these are the things that motivate me.
Yeah.
And they call them the genius, and then there's the frustrations, and then there's the competencies, which you can do, but they don't give you a lot of energy.
Yeah. And David mentioned, if you haven't seen Patrick Lencioni give a talk, go look him up on YouTube. He's really funny. He's so analytical and smart, and yet he's ADHD, and a fly on a wall can totally distract him, and he just jumps all around. And so it's really fun. But let's give you the framework for the working genius. Let's not. Hold on.
Yeah.
David's got something to say. ADHD.
Well, but I just want to, Patrick Lencioni's been around a long time, and I think the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which people might be familiar with, was like 25 years ago, and he's done Death by Meeting. He's probably got 10 or 15 books out. This is his latest one, and really easy to identify with. He's got a podcast called The Same Thing. And he came up with this like a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I started hearing about it and started identifying with it and just kind of listening to the journey. But now that they've launched their book, now he's really pushing this thing, because before it was ideas and they're kind of working through to make sure it all worked. But over this last year and a half, they've really defined it all. That's why he's created this book and why he's launching it now. And so I will digress and hand it back to you.
Yeah, so we'll put it in the show notes, but you can go to Working Genius with Patrick Lencioni, and you can go on to their website. It's a $25 test. It takes 10 minutes, and they give you the framework for how to take the results and put them into a team map, which is what we really love. So you're going to want to make sure you at least have 4 or 5 people on your team that you're taking it with if you want to do the team map. If you want to just do it for yourself, that's fine, but we would totally encourage you to spend the money. It's really expensive, and we did it today, and it was enlightening just in the first 15 minutes to go, oh, that's totally you, or that's totally what I don't want to do in my life.
Absolutely.
So, what is working genius? So Patrick Lencioni says that each of us has the God-given ability to get joy and energy from 2 types of work. Something you love or something that totally frustrates you is how he's going to analyze it. And because we love a certain type of work, we gravitate towards it. And then when things naturally exhaust us or drain us, that's something that's going to frustrate us. So he puts it into your working genius are things you really love. They bring you joy. They're your gifts, and they're what you use to contribute to the world around you. Then he talks about your working frustrations. What is draining you? What's kind of this thing that naturally exhausts you? They can become a source of guilt and judgment because you feel bad about not being competent or eager to work in that particular area. And we all know we have frustrations, but the way they put it in this one was really eye-opening. And then there are those areas, there's two that are called working competencies. They don't bring you immense joy, but they don't bring you immense frustration. But if you do one too long, you can become frustrated, or you might find some joy, but it's not really going to be the thing that brings you the most passion. So let's talk about what his categories are. And we won't go into like crazy detail, but we will give you an overview and then talk about our team, because I think how you implement it matters more than what you are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the genius of wonder is you have this natural gift of pondering the possibility of greater potential and opportunity in a given situation.
This podcast is sponsored by CBSI. For the last 35 years, CBSI has helped customers navigate change in their organizations, whether they need a team to manage their construction projects or are planning a relocation to right-size their office space. With transparent communication and culture-building strategies, CBSI leads the leaders of organizations through complex projects. If you are in the need of a proven team, check them out at cbsisandiego.com.
So what do you think when you think about wonder, David? Like before this test, what did you think about like, people that just wonder all the time, right?
Yeah, it's not me. I'm more factual. But yeah, I mean, wondering is just like, what could the potential be if we did this? Or what if we tried this? And a lot of just wonder, but a lot of thinking, but not doing. It is who the wanderer is. And it's someone that's essential if you run a business. If you don't have someone that wonders, like, what's the best thing? What's the next best thing we can do? Why don't we try this? Why don't we, look into this situation?
Yeah. So you have to have people with the genius of wonder in your circle. If you don't have someone with the genius of wonder in your circle, then you are not going to know what the working competency is on your team to get things improved, right? I think that's part of it. It's like, who is the one that's thinking about ways that can improve things, whether it's in your business, whether it's in the world? These are your change makers. They might not implement the change, but they're thinking about it and they're talking about it and they're planting a seed that maybe someone else is going to go grow. But you have to have this element. And we all have some of these elements, remember, when we talk about it. But some are really your working genius and some are others. And so you have to find partnerships. The next one, and by the way, this spells the word widget. And you go on the website, you'll see that it's a bunch of gears and they all work together. So again, all of these work together on your team, in your family, in your community, however you are taking the test. The genius of invention is a natural gift of creating original and novel ideas and solutions. And people who have it love to generate new ideas and solutions to problems, and they're comfortable coming up with something out of nothing.
Yeah. I can identify to that.
That's one of David's, right? Talk about it. Talk about why you feel like invention really relates to you.
Well, I would say in the business sense, I can almost picture things on how they're supposed to go together, whether that be out in the field on a project in a building or just kind of the steps to make something happen. I can see it in my head before it actually, is created, and then I write it down, and it's not even something that I think about. It's just there. It just, that's my God-given ability to be able to see something and break it down and be able to, whether it's create it from scratch or to fix something.
Yeah. David's nickname in my house is MacGyver. And so invention is 100% accurate for him because he can see an issue, go to the garage and start to tinker around. And the next thing you know, he's got his duct tape, his zip ties, his WD-40, whatever it is. And he is going in with all the tools. And he, obviously more than those, but they're just kind of funny examples. But that's MacGyver, right? Like he didn't need a lot of resources, but you could figure out how to fix anything or solve anything to some degree with your hands.
Which is why my corporate career started in facilities management, because it was just natural.
Yeah, it definitely is your working genius. Definitely not mine, but it's not my working frustration, so that's good.
Yeah.
But I think once I go through them, and then we'll talk about which ones are our genius and frustrations, this is how you're going to know why our marriage can work. So the D is discernment, and most people know about discernment. You kind of have this gut instinct, but the genius of discernment is this gift of intuitively and instinctively evaluating ideas and situations. People with this type of genius have a natural ability when it comes to evaluating or assessing a given idea or situation and providing guidance. And this one definitely, I think, relates to me. I just kind of always have that gut instinct or that kind of feeling about something. I don't have to have a bunch of facts about it, but I can know whether we're moving in the right direction or not when it comes to the business.
No question about it. You definitely have the discernment because you're always asking like that next question of, does this make sense? Or this is how we should change that. I get the idea, but this is how we might want to change it because it'll work better.
Yeah. I think you have to have someone with discernment on your team, because if you just have a bunch of people that are inventing or wondering, you have to have someone who's also discerning. Otherwise, you could spend a lot of money or go in a different direction, and you have to kind of have that discernment to know, is this in alignment with what we said we wanted to do versus like something that seems like the next best thing, right?
Yeah.
And so this one definitely is one of mine. It's funny. It's not one of David's frustrations, but it's considered one of his working competencies, which means he's got it. He definitely can do it, but it doesn't bring him like this immense joy to go like, what does my intuition tell me about this?
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Let me dive into that. Let me think about how I feel about this.
Oh, forget it.
All right. So galvanizing. Galvanizing is the natural gift of rallying, inspiring, and organizing others to take action. People who have it enjoy bringing energy and movement to an idea or a decision. Talk about galvanizing.
No. This is one of my working frustrations.
No.
Let's just get it done, all right? And that'll make sense when the other ones come up.
I don't want to rally you because I want to invent it and do it.
That's right. I'm God didn't give me the ability to just continue to motivate people. It just I can do it, but it's frustrating, especially when you're not getting the response that you want in order to get things done.
You want people to just be able to see what you're seeing and take action. And I think that's part of it. And this is more of like rallying them to take action. Like, I'm going to motivate you and build you up and be your cheerleader, hold your hand along the way. Your version of a nightmare.
Yeah, pretty much. But again, this is something you have to have on your team.
You do?
That's why these are so different, but they work together like these, like this widget and these cogs do, because they all turn together.
Yeah, and remember, there's no negative about any of these. It's a negative to you because that's a frustration to you. And you have to work in your gifts, in your God-given gifts. And when you're not, that's when you get burnout. That's when it gets frustrating. So we're in a season that's hard, and we're having to rally the team all the time. And if I say to David, like, I can't do it, go rally the team, he's like, I can for a little bit, but I don't want to do this every day. Like, this is not my passion.
I can, I will, I must.
Get your ET out. It's so funny. We currently don't have anyone galvanizing yet on our team. We haven't had everybody take the test, but we definitely need to make sure that we have someone that is their God-given talent.
Yeah.
It's a working competency for me. I can definitely do it. But after a period of time, I can find that I give so much of my energy trying to encourage and motivate others that I'm completely drained, and I'm not being refilled by something that brings me a lot of joy. I'm having to exert a lot out, and I think a lot of leaders can relate to that. When you're working in an area that is a working competency, it's a skill set you have, but it's not something that fills you up.
Yep.
So it can drain you fast. And I think that we have been in a season for the last 2 years of having to do a lot of rallying. A lot of leaders have. And so you're working in a lot of different areas that you didn't normally have to because of the situation we've been in with the pandemic. So you can burn out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Enablement. The genius of enablement is the natural gift of providing encouragement and assistance for an idea or project. People with this type of genius are quick to respond to the needs of others by offering their cooperation and help with the project, program, or effort. So talk about enablement.
Well, it's very much like galvanizing, and it's rallying the troops. It's a little bit different, but it's my other working frustration.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I can do it. And in my position, I have to do it, and I'm willing to do it. But until taking this test, it's like, oh, yeah, that's why I don't get the joy out of doing it. It's a responsibility, but it does not fire me up. On the other hand, Sarah, this is your genius.
And your voice changed.
And my voice changed.
So that's what's so funny, right? So we're a married couple, we're leading an organization together, but this is why it actually works. We don't have the same genius and the same frustration. If we did, we would be frustrated all the time because we have to do all these things.
Yep.
So we better have a balance between us and our team. So this is one of my working geniuses. I really love to enable others to really seek your passion, grow into your abilities, and I'm going to encourage you to do it. And I'm going to jump on the team to get the project done. And it brings me joy to just jump in and do it with everybody else. I don't want to have to invent it, and I don't want to have to be the finisher and the sole responsibility for the whole thing. But I do love taking people that underestimate themselves and really propelling them forward and encouraging and enabling them to find success, and kind of cheering them on. I don't want to rally them to come be on my team, but if you're on my team, I am your biggest cheerleader and I'm ready to get you there.
Yeah, that's so true. And it makes total sense. And again, and it'll be great once everyone on our team takes a test and we can really see where our strong points are and our weak points are. And, if there's like you and Greg are, those are your working geniuses,
right,
is enablement. And that's great to have two on the team. And I think that really breaking this down to understand what frustrates people and maybe changing jobs around to quit forcing part of your team to work in their frustrations, and enable them to work in their geniuses. See how I did that?
So good.
I know.
Yeah. So David's frustration, my genius on enablement. And then we come to the final one, which is tenacity, the genius of tenacity, the natural gift of pushing projects or tasks to completion to achieve results. People who have this genius push for required standards of excellence and live to see the impact of their work. And this is David's genius and my frustration. So a total flip. I'm going to enable you to do it. And David is over here like, we are going to get the work done, even if I have to do it myself.
Yeah, it really created some clarity on why. And Sarah, we were talking with Greg about it earlier, and it's like when we're on these big jobs, it's like it's easier for me to say, come on, guys, let's go, follow me, let's just get it done, than trying to like rally the troops. Come on, you guys, you can do this. You do it. I'm just willing to step in and get it done because that's just the way God made me.
Yeah.
And I am there to the very bitter end to make sure the project is complete and done right.
Yeah. And this is a total frustration for me. If I have to live in this too long, which I've had to do this for a lot over the last 6 months, is jump in and really finish projects, be in the field and be the person doing the work. And so it gets really frustrating for me day in and day out. Like when we just did a big stadium project and I was on it for 4 weeks straight, like this is my version of a nightmare, because it's all about like standards of excellence and the impact of your work, and so excited to see the finished product, where I've been like in something for 2 years and I'm ready for it to be done, but those like final implementation pieces, like I want to enable somebody else to go work in their genius, because David loves to do this. But when you're a small business, you don't always have enough people who can do all these things. And so it's totally the perfect marriage of like my strength to his strength. Like I want to enable, he wants to get the work done. So I'm going to cheer you on, David, to go do it. You're going to invent it. I'm going to enable you. And then you're going to go finish it.
That's right.
Doesn't that just work out great? And then I'm going to have that discernment of like, was this right or wrong? Should we move forward? I'm going to ask you questions. But it's so funny because when we look at all of these together, it's called a team map. And so you can go to the website and you can have your team take it. And then we're going to talk about why you need someone from every. And if you're more heavy on the genius side on all these different categories, well, you have an amazing team. But if you're more heavy on the frustration side and there's no one in the genius side, this is where your team is struggling, because if you don't have anyone on your team who has tenacity, no one wants to finish the job, right? Everyone, if you're heavy on wonder and everyone's over here wondering how we're going to make things better, but no one's actually making them better, this could be why you're struggling. And it's a simple model, but man, it can be impactful. So talk about pairings, David. So you are an invention and tenacity. So tell me what that pairing actually like reads as.
So I am called the methodical architect.
Which is so true.
I know, it's so true. It's great. It says, a precise, reliable, and planful solver of problems, a unique combination of innovative thinking and practical implementation. That's my love language right there.
Wow, I should just put this on a plaque next to my bed so that way I know your love language. What's even funnier is his is IT, and I'm like always saying to him like, I need IT in here.
There you go.
Because I have a problem that needs to be fixed, which is like, between MacGyver and IT. I feel like this was meant for me to just understand you more in our marriage than anything else. Read it again.
The methodical architect, a precise, reliable, and planful solver of problems, a unique combination of innovative thinking and practical implementation.
It's so you.
I know. Thank you, Patrick Lencioni.
You feel whole? Do you feel like he completed you?
Yeah. Let's talk about you. The DE, discernment and enablement, is called the insightful collaborator, an intuitive, empathetic advisor and team player, selfless and compassionate in providing others with what they need in the right way.
That actually sounds nice.
It is nice.
A lot of these assessments, I feel like they're so negative when they come out and you're like, dang, I'm like a horrible person because I'm a like intense leader. And I think because they give you more of the weakness side.
Yep.
And that's like, even if someone tells you all your strengths, if you get one weakness pointed out, that's all you see, right? And so the other ones really like have pages and pages and pages of why your characteristics are bad.
Well, and I think that's a great analogy of it, because a lot of the other tests, Enneagram, the DISC, it's like too much information, too much output and analysis of who you are and all those things, where this is just simple. And that was Patrick's point, is like, this makes sense because you can work on it alone. You can work on it with a team. It's easy to understand. It's easy to implement. And there's no negativity about it.
Right. There's nothing you have to fix.
Yeah.
This is pointing out what brings you joy and what brings you frustration so that you can work more into your joy. And you can find other people that can work into those areas that frustrate you. And as a leader, if you don't know how to define what frustrates you, then this is where problems can happen. And I think for me, I've been in this season of frustration in my leadership because I'm just burnt out and exhausted and I can't figure out why. And this small little test was kind of eye-opening when he was talking about it. And I think I've been saying it out loud for the past few weeks of like, I'm really burnt out from these certain things that I'm doing all the time. And then he started saying like, oh, well, you have this characteristic of tenacity and here's what it means. And I'm like, this is what I've been doing for the last 6 months. No wonder I'm frustrated and exhausted and drained. Like this is my working frustration and I'm having to do it every single day in this job. And so it's good for you as my partner in here to be able to say like, I can't put her in this situation
Yeah.
every single day if I want her to be successful, because what she's successful at is enabling others to go do these things,
Right.
not having to be the doer all the time, right?
Absolutely. And I think, for how long have we said and we have 3 teenagers, that you have to go to high school. They cover everything. Some of the classes you'll really like, some of the classes you won't, but you have to take them all. And once you're an adult, whether you're going into college or going into business, focus on the things that you really enjoy doing, not on the things that frustrate you. Don't get a job in sales if you don't like talking to people. Oh, look, I got this opportunity to get this sales job and it pays really good, but you hate doing it. Don't do it. And we've talked about that. And unfortunately, that's just how the education system is built up. They want to give you a broad spectrum of math and English and Spanish and history and all these things, but don't really focus on what the students really enjoy. And on your way out of high school, like, hey, you were really good at this or history, English, Spanish, maybe find a job going into this and stay away from math if that is your working frustration.
Yeah, no, it's really true. I think that you're always going to have elements of these things that frustrate you, especially if you're a leader in an organization. You're going to step in and out of all these things. It's how long you stay in it that's going to decide whether or not that you're really going to find joy and passion in this career anymore. And does the team that's working with you see that this is a working frustration for you and help to try to resolve that, or do they just keep forcing you into it, right? Because what's going to happen is you're going to get that fight or flight mode, and I think that's a lot of what I've been feeling recently. It's like I'm ready to flee this because I can't keep doing this particular aspect of the job, but now I have this kind of definition to it of stop forcing me into this working frustration, because I could really be successful working in my genius if I was allowed to do that
Absolutely.
part of it, right?
So once our whole team finishes this, we're going to go through the team map and figure it out, and what parts of what we do other people can take over that have the genius of it, or at least the competency to do it, and as much as we possibly can, keep people out of their frustration.
And when we hire, that was the other thing Patrick said, is now if you don't have anyone who's a galvanizer, who loves to rally the troops and build teams and get everyone going and excited about something you're working on, then that's what we need to hire.
Right.
Because if that's a box that's empty, wow, isn't this a great tool? They actually use this tool when they hire. They make people take the test before they hire them, because if they're specifically looking for someone who is a galvanizer, then what better way to find it than to just ask them the questions of, do you love this? Do you hate this? Does this bring you joy, or does this not? And you would rather find out before you hire them than after you hire them, then the gap that you had is also a gap for them, right?
That their frustration is galvanizing.
And that's all you really needed was someone who was a galvanizer, right? If you, like David said, if you're going to go need a business development person, you're not going to get someone that only wants to do wonder, right? Because they need to be not just internal, they need to be external. And someone with the gift of wonder typically is more internal. They're more of an introvert. They're wondering how things can improve. They're asking a lot of questions. They're not out there selling your product. They're figuring out how to make it better, right? The other thing that I thought was really funny when we took this is we are in the middle of taking it as a team. So we'll come back and on one of the ones and give you an update. But 2 of the 3 of us that took it asked to retake it because they wanted to get a different working genius. And it was funny because I think that we don't like to be put in a box, right? And I'm the one that's most vocal about that, but I didn't ask to retake it, but 2 did. And I think that is part of the way we want to be perceived versus the way we are perceived, or just the way we are. And what we kept saying was, let's read the pairing. And once we read the pairing, that's when it was like, oh my God, that's totally you. And do you agree? And they were like, yeah, actually that is me. So if you feel like there's certain parts of this that you're like, I don't really know if that's me, read the pairing part, because it's the pairing that really pulls it together of like who you are as a leader in a positive way that makes you go like, oh yeah, I guess that really is what I lean to.
Yeah, and so I was one of those test retakers, but let's put it in perspective.
Tell us why you felt like you needed a better score.
I took this test in May of 21 when it first came out.
Okay.
And so they've developed it more. Even the report that came out used to be 18 pages. Now it's 11 pages. So they've really refined it. And I'm like, well, maybe the questions have changed too. So as we're going through this as a team, why not take it again? It's been a year and a half, and let's see what changes. So my genius did not change.
You are who you are.
I am who I am. But my competency and frustration changed, and the two that switched was discernment and enablement. I went from saying that discernment was my working frustration and enablement was my competency, and those switched, and I think it's better this way. I can use the discernment. It doesn't frustrate me as much as the enablement of trying to rally the troops. So it was worth it, but again, and those might change a little bit just how you feel on answering some of the questions. But I think when it comes to the genius, you know what the answers are on that, because just what are the three answers? Like, yes, I'll do that, maybe sometimes, and no way, or for the most part?
Oh, no way, sometimes, somewhat, and oh heck yes, pretty much.
Yeah,
like,
right. So you know on your
they're
genius,
extremes.
Right? You know on your genius, like heck yes, that's totally me, and the other one is like eh. And I think that there's somewhere in between too, but I think it's still pretty clear. And the most important part is know what your genius is to be able to focus your time and energy mostly into that.
Yeah, and it was funny when we were sitting there with our team, everyone was quick to identify everybody else, right? So my team looked at me and they were like, oh, you're discernment and you're galvanizing or whatever. And then it was between galvanizing and actually enablement and invention, like it kind of bounced around, which is, I have all four of those. It's like genius. And then we were like, oh yeah, David, you're totally MacGyver, your invention. And then, oh, but you're galvanizing. Oh, and your tenacity, like they all just threw them out. But no one said their own. I think, and that's that perception part of like, we're quick to know what other people are and to be able to give you your label. But then it's like, what? I want a good label. Am I that? I don't know.
Right.
So I think what I like about this one is there is no negative connotation about this one. It is, you are someone who finds joy in certain things, and you are someone that finds frustration in some things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a strength. It's not a weakness. This is just what is your passion and what is not, right? And then what can you handle a limitation of before you're certainly frustrated with. And so I would encourage you, take this one with your team. If you've got a team of 4 or more, you're going to have better team mapping results. They give you a PDF, plug your map in, and you can see on there who's the geniuses, who's the frustrations on each one, and figure out where your gaps are, because it's only going to build your team when you get knowledge of what people are really drawn to and what drives them crazy.
We appreciate that you decided to hang out and spend some time with us discussing life and leadership. It would mean the world to us if you would share this episode on social media to increase our online presence. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute to rate it and review it wherever you listen. Mahalo!